you no matter what. I am Jonathan from Hindenburg, and with me today is the wonderful Johnny Heller. We're going to talk all things audiobooks, voiceover, getting gigs, everything like that. But first, I'm going to tell you a few things about AirMeet. Just do the housekeeping so we can get this all sorted out, okay? So for those folks who are watching on YouTube and on Facebook, thank you very much. Welcome. We're happy to have you. For those folks who are here in AirMeet, I want to tell you just a few things for those who haven't been here before. One, it's a browser, so you might want to put it in full screen so you can see the whole thing, you know. And another thing, if you see on the right side of your screen, there are a few options there, okay? There's a place where you can see chats. That's where you can have a chat with anybody that you want to. And next to that is a Q&A area. If you have a question for Johnny, put it in the Q&A area and I can put it up on the screen. It just kind of is better for everybody else, okay? So if you do have a question, put it there. We'll put it up on the screen, and don't be shy, okay? And to everybody else, like I said, welcome. And if you see it, for the folks who are here also, there's a little reactions icon where you can hit some buttons and put some hearts and other things and give us some digital love here to know that you appreciate what we have going on here. So thank you very much for that. All right. So with that, let's talk to you, Mr. Johnny. So we are so happy to have you here. And I want to ask you all kinds of things, like I said, about everything regarding the industry. But can you just tell us how did you get into this in the first place? How did you get started?
I was always an actor, and I was studying. I was doing Shakespeare, mostly studying Shakespeare. Studying. I was in a 3-year advanced program in Chicago. I was doing stand-up, working in improv, and taking acting courses. And I'd given up a job as a journalist, a good job. There go be a famous actor, and boy, I didn't make any money for a long time. But as I was doing, my teacher at the time, a guy named Ted Liss, he was kind of a legend. He had one of those deep kind of voices like this, you know. And those this time is the 80s, I guess. A lot of the commercials are the male voice of God, and a lot of agents came to our class to watch shows and scenes and things. They're pretty good actors there, and they liked my quirky voice. And I didn't know anything about a voiceover, nothing. And they brought me in, and I auditioned for my first spot. I got a national spot my first time out, and I thought, "Whoa, this is better than waiting tables." It was stupid. It was lucky. It was crazy, but ridiculously good money. And I said, "Well, let me just do that." So then I started doing I started working at Chicagoland agents, and then I started doing all kinds of industrials and just tons of things that I didn't even know existed. I was trained for the stage, but found my calling. I did, commercials and animated voices and characters. And then later when I moved to New York, that's when the audiobook world opened to me.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So for a lot of people, I've found in all the conferences, everything that happens where we talk to voiceover people, different folks in different parts of the industries, a lot of folks are doing, e-learning and animation and other things, that anything they can kind of compile together. And then the audiobooks are kind of like, when I get around to it, long term, like a back burner project, that kind of thing. But for you, it almost seems like it's gone the opposite way.
It's definitely the foreground. I lived in LA for a while. I did episodics. I did a lot of cartoon voices and stuff. But
yeah,
I have found, as a trained theater actor, I've found that the audiobook world for me checks off all the boxes, except for the audience response.
Right,
When you tell a joke on stage, or you say something funny, you get a laugh. But even in theater, but it's it checks off a lot of it. You get to play everybody. You get to tell a story. Most important for me, now that I've been at it for so long, is that people say, well, it's just too much work for the money. And I don't know if that's true. I do just fine financially. I get my insurance all the time. I work regularly. I teach and coach. So you put it all together and it works. But the idea that you are sharing not just a story, but literature with people who may not normally wish to read or even think about it. And It opens the doors to so many people, especially kids, to start appreciating the written word.
Yeah.
And that's honorable to me. That's a good thing. I'm really pleased to be a part of that process.
So you say you've been at it a while, even though you're 25. I don't know how you could have been at it for so long.
Thank
But
you,
so,
dear.
yeah. So you've been at it for a little bit. How have you seen it change? What was different from, let's just say, audiobooks? Because I know there's so
Okay, yeah.
many avenues we could go.
When I started Naughty, and the way I got in, you can't even get in that way anymore. The way I walked in the
Right.
door, I literally walked in the door. A friend of mine. So I was kind of brazen. But when I first started, you worked. I didn't know, but there's so many audiobook publishers now, so
Right.
many, and there weren't quite as many when I started. And I didn't even know. I worked for 5-6 years before I knew there were other people. And you worked in a studio. You went to a place in the studio with an engineer hitting all the buttons for you and everything. So there's
Right.
always sort of a director. Now, the reason that the industry has blown up, when I started, it was a multi-million-dollar industry. Now it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Not that I've made billions, but it has, it's just progression's been amazing.
Yeah.
Well, part of that is due, or a big part of that is due to the fact that people have home studios now,
Right.
which requires a DAW that you can use, a soundproof booth. It requires the right equipment and requires you to have some knowledge or gift for self-direction, because there's rarely a director working with you. Turn my fan down a little bit. So, which is a huge change. I
Yeah.
think the biggest change in the industry in the years I've been with it is the advent and the huge storm of change that came with individual booths. If you had a home booth in the past, you got paid extra money for using your booth instead of making them rent one or using their own booth.
Yeah.
No longer. Now you pretty much have to have a booth if you're
Right.
going to do this job.
Right. So we have we have two products. One's for audiobooks and the other one's for podcasting. And so for the one that's for audiobooks and voiceover in general, the whole idea is that you can do all of that, from home. And we're anticipating the other thing that it does is kind of voiceover for like video game scripts, that kind of thing. That's maybe the last place, and maybe like animated movies and things where people go into a studio. But like most things, it's like it just doesn't make sense that model is still going to be there. At least that's what we think, because anybody could do it from home.
I think it has some difficulty. I mean, even in multicast, even now, you can do let's say everybody in this call right now who's here.
Yep.
We're all doing Othello or something. Well, it's so much better to be in the same room reacting immediately. Yeah. And I don't know if that's going to change, although a lot of multicast audiobooks, which is another big change in the industry, are done where you kind of do your lines to nobody. and then an engineer plugs it all together. I've done a few of those.
Really?
Yeah. It's interesting. But I do think if you can get together in a studio, and I think if you're doing ADR looping, if you're doing animation, you need to, I think those will stay as a group effort.
Yeah.
Or in a situation like this, we have a whole bunch of people we can all work together. It's a big, for lack of a different word, a big Zoom session for everybody.
Yes. Right.
Where the engineer can record Jonathan and then record Johnny and then, like that. But it's, that's the only way it can change, I think. And I don't know if I like, one of the biggest problems for me is you don't get to see anybody anymore. It's a very individual business. Yeah. So you're working in a booth by yourself. I mean, it's hard to meet your fellow workers because you're never together.
That is sad, that part of it. But I guess that's why there are the conferences.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're huge now. It's like, oh my God, you live. It's like,
I know. So whenever we have people that are doing voiceover from something else and they go into audiobooks, one thing, because when you send your stuff off to ACX or Findaway Voices, you might get it sent back to you and it says, hey, this isn't good for whatever reason. But just in general, consistency is kind of a difficult thing to do, because if you're not used to it, because an audiobook is a long game. So if you're playing a character, you have to be consistent through maybe a 5, 6, 10-hour audiobook. Do you have any tricks with that?
Well, it a lot depends. I mean, under the umbrellas of fiction and nonfiction. If it's a fiction book with X number of characters, the protagonist is always going to be you. So, Jonathan, I'm hiring you to be the private eye. You're pretty much going to be your voice. But the other guys, your your colleagues and your enemies and in your malls and dolls and all that. They're all different. So you need to keep track of what you can't just give something a voice. It's not a cartoon. Even a cartoon doesn't. You need to understand the essence of acting and character. You need to understand why, so you need to think about what I suggest to everybody is they cast the book from their frame of reference.
Okay.
Meaning if there's a character, say, oh my God, this reminds you of Jonathan from Hindenburg. I could see him playing this. So I don't have to impersonate you, but you have a different style than I do.
Right.
If I say this guy is Benedict Cumberbatch at Sherlock Holmes, or this guy is Clint Eastwood from a spaghetti western, or you know what I mean? And it could be, or this guy's the barista from my Starbucks, or the guy I buy my Taco Bell, whatever the hell Taco Bell sells.
Gorditas.
Yeah, I've never been to a Taco Bell, but so when they, whoever you've been alive forever, you've met thousands of people.
Maybe not forever.
Well, but all the years you've got high school, you got your parents and your relatives and your teachers and every actor you've ever seen anywhere. So there's a million people to cast. So you cast, and you could be, it could be like in a snooty New England lawyer, and then you could pick a Mayor Quimby or any Kennedy, depending on what kind of thing it is. But once you have it down and you find the character, the voice will be there as well. And it's not an impersonation; it's just your casting. And generally, the casting has to be true to whatever method, hopefully, you're trained in as an actor. And then you got to keep a record. Almost every recording software has a bookmark feature. Or because I don't know anything and I'm not tech, as we've said, here's what I'll show you real quick. Let me do this. On your smartphone has voice memos. Let's see if I can get it up there.
Yes.
All right. So this goes back to 2013 or something. All the books I do, and it's got here's a guy's voice. So I try to write down the name of the book and the character so that when I do, Major Clark on, chapter 1, that Major Clark will be the same Major Clark when he reappears in chapter 15. So you have to hear what you did. So, since you've done it, you can certainly recreate it.
But you need to hear it. You need the context.
You need to know what you did, because the listener certainly knows what you did.
So we're not here to really talk about Hindenburg, but I have to mention this part just because what you basically described as a feature that's our people, because there are our folks for the most part, they are probably not in their heads saying that's the clipboard, because we have a feature where it's like a clipboard. You can take any clips that you had at any point, put them in there, bring them up, import like a clipboard, like your voice memo thing from the past. You can just import it and hear any because it's a reference point, which you need to be consistent.
Absolutely. And in terms of the character, assigning character, that's a lot of people don't realize that voiceover acting in all its things is still acting. We forget that last word. It's not, hey, someone told me I have a nice voice. Can you, I don't give a crap if you have a nice voice. Can you tell a story? Can you act? Yeah. And I think people forget the fact this is an acting job, first and foremost. And you can't lose track of that.
So it's sort of my question. What do you think are things that people assume about a voice actor that's not true?
I think they assume that they make a lot of money.
Okay.
I think they assume that they either assume they've got an acting background or don't need one.
Yeah.
And I think the actor's job is to always be learning, always be growing in the craft. And I think the acting requirements for e-learning, for industrial, for corporate voiceover, for automotive commercials versus other commercials, for animation, audiobooks, and then genres under audiobooks all have a lot of specificity to what's required of the actor. But it all comes down to brass tacks. I don't care if you studied Meisner, Shurtleff, Stanislavski. There has to be some background for you to develop your characters. How do you play them? What determines? And every time the questions are there, like, what is this act? Anytime you do something, someone's saying something, that person wants something. There's a desire. You have to identify that and figure out how to play it. For some people, it's very clear. For other people, it's not. So do you
do that at the beginning of the book and then just keep it in your mind, like this person, this, because it's gonna, it's a whole book.
Well, it changes by context and scene.
Yeah.
If you look at here's a Mother Teresa, and she's just sweet and lovely, and so but that's a little boring. What happens when she's pissed off and fighting off Hell's Angels? or something. What
That's a
happens?
great movie.
In
I'd
other words,
watch
so
that movie.
yeah. Me too. Well, the idea is anybody, here's us smiling and laughing. What
Yeah.
happens when we're angry? What happens when we're hungry? What happens when, when we're dealing with idiots? What happens, no matter what? So
Sure.
you can't say this guy wants this. No one has my desire, to go retire in the beach in Hawaii, which isn't my desire, but that's not my it's not in there every moment of my life. In this particular instance, you and I are chatting. What do we want? What do we want from each other? And in the book, that's always clear. So in the scene, you have to identify, and it becomes less a problem and more automatic, more integral to what you do. It becomes something you just do automatically, and that's what you want to do. You want to be able to identify the character, what's going on automatically.
Okay. So you did a very good job explaining that, because you explained this and take people through this kind of thing. Because that's one part of what you do is you teach courses, and so do you have a teaching style? And can you tell us about your upcoming courses?
Sure. My teaching style has been called tactical by my good friend Sean Pratt. There are teachers like Joe Leslie Frumkin, Sean Pratt, and others. There's so many who have a course. Like Sean does a 14 once a month, 14 months in all nonfiction. And it's a lot of bullet points and everything's number. And today we're going to work on this kind of thing. Tomorrow we're going to work on that kind of thing. My coaching is a little broad. Mine is performance based.
Okay.
And generally it deals with either a specific script you're working on or you developing your audiobook skills as an actor. So we'll work on different scripts, see what you do well and highlight that, see what you don't do well and find out why and see if we can't make a change there.
So is the idea
it's more tactical.
Okay, so I've got my script and you're like, okay, perform it.
Well,
And
you send me, let's say you send me fiction or nonfiction, whatever, a few pages of each. And we'll talk about what's going on and we perform and we decide. And are you putting on, I'm acting now, putting on a hat and bullshitting me, or are you actually telling me a story? But can I say things like that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, good.
I mean, I don't know.
Here,
But
so look at my sign back there. See,
there you go. It's there the whole time. So
it's a Johnny Heller quote, because we all talk too fast. And in audiobooks in particular, you need to speak slowly enough. Everybody needs to understand that we hear stories in a cinematic way. When I tell you a story, images appear in your head and action and scenes start appearing. That's why we get lost in Lord of the Rings or something. It takes some time. The author picks words to set the scene, and you have to see the scene and share that vision. That's cinematic. So the acting in audiobooks is actually quite more of an on-camera style. It's much smaller than you would think. So you need to work on all those things, and you need to do it slowly enough for them to get. And also, we get paid by the finished hour. So what's the hurry?
Right.
So yes. No, so my teaching is, excuse me, sneeze.
Sure.
Pardon me. My teaching is it's all that Canadian fire smoke in New
We're
York.
both in the Northeast here, folks, so you might get some coughing and sneezing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. My goodness, it's been a weird couple of days.
Yeah.
So basically, my coaching is, what do you need? Where are you now? And let's move you along. Let's keep moving you along to where you're at a place where you can be competitive with me.
Well, let's talk about the competitive part. So some people, really everybody is going to have this question, even if they're a little too polite to ask. So everybody is doing this, and some people are doing it for the love of, they want to do this, get in this field, try these things. I'm sure a lot of folks, somebody has said, hey, you have a nice voice as the beginning of it. But how do you, when you do your courses, you've maybe you got your handle on tech, you can produce the content as pretty well or really well, fast enough. All that is great, but none of that pays your rent. How do you have tips for getting consistent work?
Yes. As first, the first thing is you have all the equipment. You have your equipment. You have your great microphone. You have all the crap you need to make it. Then you've got a script. Well, some scripts are great, some aren't. But there's the thing that comes down to is you. What you can do. How do you do it? And so you need first off to get known a little bit. There's a ACX, which is, for lack of a better phrase, it's a Tinder for authors and talent.
I've not heard that, but that's a good way to put. That should be their
Yeah.
catchphrase.
Yeah. and the thing is, and this bothers me a lot of newer actors start there, which is fine because you learn two things. One, don't start by doing a really crappy book. Don't take a crappy book for the experience, because then you'll be experienced at crap. How good is that in a resume? You know, if your first show is on Broadway as an actor, it's your first show, you're getting paid the same as any other Broadway guy, and you're on Broadway. There's no minor leagues in the voiceover world. ACX is not AA or AAA. It's work. If you're getting paid, it's work. Plain and simple, and you're a pro. So pick things that are worthwhile, and don't start thinking that you're no good because you're only doing ACX. People start there all the time. There are ways to reach out to the publishers. We talk about the big five, but there's a whole bunch of publishers out there, and they all have casting people. And the casting people's job, their literal, what they do for a living is cast actors. So they're interested and they want to cast you. So you need to find out who they are, how to reach out. And there's a number of ways. One is social media. I know it's a minefield, but you have to navigate it. A lot of the new casting people are on Instagram and TikTok, which I'm not. I'm on Instagram and not TikTok. There's Facebook, there's Twitter, whatever you want. But at least, and there's all these groups, all these Facebook, all these voiceover Facebook groups and voiceover Instagram groups and voiceover Clubhouse has a whole bunch of voiceover centric groups. Get in there,
Discord.
even if Discord, get in these places and at least listen so you get known. You can also join. Let's see, let me think. There's three organizations that have some value to join. One is PANA, the Professional Audiobook Narrator Association. I'm not a member, but they do some good things. There's NAVA, National Association of Voice Artists. That's not just audiobooks, but voiceover in general. And joining them has the benefit of putting you in a group that can buy insurance at a lower price than you would pay. And of course, there is the Audio Publishers Association, which puts out the Audie Awards and does other things. They also have a speed dating thing. So you can put your name in a lottery to win speed dating. And if you're in speed dating, you're going to give an elevator pitch to 10 to 20 different publishers who then will call you. There are conventions where you can meet, if you want to meet authors, you can go to the Iowa Mystery Writers Convention and be the audiobook guru and meet them. Depends what you want. Whatever genre you want, there's probably some author convention in some state for it. There's bigger there's VO Atlanta, there's Mavo, there's My Retreats, there's APAC. There's thousands of things to do, and you need to get out there. The problem is this is you in a booth. And someone needs to know who you are and you're there. So you've got to be easy. You need a website. You've got to be easy to find, et cetera, et cetera.
PANA, NAVA, APAC. A lot of acronyms. But
the last one's APA.
APA. The C is the conference. Yeah. APA.
Yes. Right.
PANA,
exactly
NAVA,
right.
APA. Yeah. Okay. I know a lot of things there, but look into those organizations. Be a member. I say, go to the Discords, go to the other chats. All right.
Yeah.
So two more questions for you, and they're related. All right. So first one is some of our folks, because we make a DAW that is for people who don't want to get mired down in technology. Some of our users are really savvy. Some aren't. And the whole design is to make it easy for people to make audiobooks and do voiceover. But do you have maybe a couple, 2 or 3 things to keep in mind for people who get frustrated or tech is just not their thing, but they are an actor, an aspiring, VO artist?
Yeah, you don't need to worry about the tech. I mean, one of the things I don't know tech at all. I'm known as a Luddite in terms of that, and it's okay. There are people who can help. If you don't know something, you need to coach with someone who does, or have someone help. You need to pay them. It's a write-off. You have to start understanding that your voiceover career is a business. And it's your business and what you're marketing. So there's write-offs and things. If you want to study with Jonathan about how or take a workshop, I mean, Hindenburg's there to help you. There are people who represent almost every facet of this industry. I don't know how to edit and master. Now, when I work for Penguin Random House or Blackstone or Dreamscape, I just send the WAV files. Yeah, and they do whatever magic they do. I don't know what the hell they do, but they send me the retakes and then I'm done. In ACX and some other places, you are responsible for producing download digital ready audio. And if you don't know how to do the mastering and editing, then somebody has to be paid to do that. It's an art. It's a gift. It's something people train to do. Go ahead and let them do it. Right now, I'll be brief. I'm sorry, but if you're doing audiobook stuff, the average industry average is 2 to 1, 2 hours in the studio for 1 finished hour. Now, if you've been at it a while, like I'm better than that. But if you start adding editing and mastering, it's 6 to 1 or 7 to 1. So whatever you're making has to get whittled down, and eventually you might as well take a job at McDonald's. So you need to send that. If you're not good at that, that's fine. Embrace what you don't know and send it to pay the people who do know. And if you're working for ACX, you're the rights holder, the person who hired you, the person generally who wrote the book. Ask them to pay for the editing, because that's not your skill set. You're an actor. You don't have to go. There's nothing in this business you have to do alone.
Good. That's a nice phrase. Okay. Another good reason to join some of those groups and build your community.
And study with me, damn it.
And study with Johnny. Your upcoming course.
Oh, right. Okay, here's what's going. I do a lot of I'm always available to teach, just like I'm talking right here. I have a website cleverly named johnnyheller.com. So all the stuff is there. I have a blog there, very informative, sometimes funny. I have workshops. We just finished one in Virginia. Just got back last weekend. In Fredericksburg, we were in a brewery. Great time. The next big one coming up is the New England Narrator Retreat. That's 3 days in outside Boston.
Hopefully we're not smoky by then.
No, oh gosh, it's good, but it might be doing, because a marijuana dispensary right across the street, so there could be some smoking. Yes,
more fun than this.
So it's a 3. You're there. It's a Monday night, Tuesday, Wednesday. You leave Thursday morning. I've got it's about, we try and keep it around 70-ish or so. We're kind of sold out on site, but we have an off-site hotel. And you can if you live nearby, you can come. We're going to have a producer from Macmillan. You can meet and chat. They're going to be there the whole time. From Orange Sky, which is Spotify, and from why am I spazzing out? And Dreamscape, Eric Black out of Dreamscape. So they're there. It's a great way to meet not only people who can and will probably might hire you if you don't suck, but there's a lot of wonderful fellow friends. You're going to make so many great friends. It's a great time to be together. It's kind of like Up with People for audiobooks. And there will be, actually, we do karaoke now. Somebody started doing that, and it ended up being fun. So that's coming up. But anything you want to know about my workshops and what I do, follow me on the various social medias, or just go to my website.
Okay. Great advice. Hopefully we'll see you in New England. All right, one more question. AI scare you? Are you thinking about it, or are you just moving along like that's not something you're focusing on? And how about for the industry, not just your personal career?
I'm a member of the SAG-AFTRA audiobook steering committee, so we talk about it frequently.
Yeah.
The union has just come out with a Rule 1, which means you can get in some big trouble. You cannot sign, if you're a union actor, you can't sign a contract for that basically does AI unless it's a union contract and they've protected you. If my feeling of AI is this: there are some helpful things AI can do. When it begins to interfere and intervene in creative arts, the writing and the acting, I think we've crossed a line that will eliminate human jobs, human interaction, and human art. I'm dead set against AI in the creative world, plain and simple. I think it's a death knell. I think if you are stupid enough to sell your voice, your sound, your art for even $500,000, that's great. That's great for the next 2 or 3 years, depending on what your budget is. But when you're done with those 2 or 3 years and you've had all your stakes, then what? Say, I want to do a job. No, we don't need you. We already have your voice. I own it. And I think that people who are most in danger of losing work to AI are people who are crappy actors anyway, who haven't taken the time to learn, who haven't worked, who haven't studied, who haven't approached it as an art and a business. And I think the people at the bottom rung who accept the crappy jobs are the people going to leave first. I don't think AI has any human emotion. It can't. It can. Yeah, it just can't. So I'm anti in a big way.
Okay. Thank you for that. Just one clarification on the first part that you said, that union contracts, can't sign a union contract if there was AI involved. If there was AI involved,
Then
like
I
in your
could.
own software, like your own voice, is that also make it null and void?
No, it's nothing is null and void. The point is, let's say Jonathan Hurley offers me a deal.
Yeah.
And it's I'm gonna we have the right, your voice will be used to train AI. It says so in the contract. Unless it's a union contract and they have a chance to talk to you and they you've worked the contract and gotten it okay from the union, I can't sign it. That's what I mean.
I see.
And so in other words, the union needs to be there to protect your rights. Because if I just sign it away, no one protects my rights. You can take my voice and do whatever you want because I signed on the dotted line.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even sign an NDA for an AI company unless I had the union check it. But something else, you can say, I'll sign your NDA, but I'm going to have my union rep look at it.
Yeah.
I'm not signing. Don't sign away anything if you're not sure what you're signing away, because the lure of that fast money is pretty exciting, but it's illusory, and you're gonna lose out.
All right. So pretty strong feelings. It's interesting times.
Yeah.
Interesting times. I have no idea what's going to happen, but we will see. But I know that you will be there, and I hope that hope everybody has enjoyed this. And of course, if you have any more questions, go to hindenburg.com about our upcoming events. We have our office hours later on this month, and of course, go to johnnyheller.com if you want to sign up for any of those sessions. Go buy him a beer in Massachusetts. It'll be great.
I'm not in Massachusetts. Oh, when I get there, yes.
When you get there, yeah. Or go to New York and get there.
Come now. It's lunchtime.
yeah. Go right now and buy him. Go hang out, have lunch. All right. Okay, everybody, we're gonna sign off. But thanks so much, and we'll see you at the next one. Bye.
Bye, all.